Breakfast
with Jim Davis and Joe Haywood.
BBC Radio Leicester.
Hello, good morning. Jim and Joe with you until 9 o'clock this morning. It's the 15th of June, which means it's BBC Music Day. And we're honouring today a Leicestershire man who you nominated, who's been responsible for helping thousands of children enjoy music. He's called Eric Pinkett. He founded the Leicester-Shire School of Music in 1948. And that actually continues to this very day. And we've been hearing, haven't we, all sorts of lovely stories and memories associated with Eric. In fact, just before the headlines, you heard a texter who said that the legacy left by Eric meant that her children still to this day enjoy music, enjoy sort of musical careers, and all the fun life experiences that's associated with it.
Oh, without a doubt. And earlier we spoke to two of Eric's former students. Yes. So we'll hear from them shortly. But later this morning, a blue plaque for Eric is set to be unveiled at Langton School, and Ben Jackson is there now preparing for the celebrations. Morning, Ben.
Good morning, Jim. I was going to start this piece by saying here we are on a beautiful summer's day in one of the most beautiful parts of the county, and then the school bus turned up and is just idling next to us. But truly, Langton is glorious, and the primary school here, where this blue plaque's going to be set up, built in 1924, is just... well, we were saying maybe the prettiest primary school in the county. It's certainly a lovely place to go to school.
Very nice indeed. So what are we expecting today then?
Well, we're making a bit of a fuss of this. As you say, Eric Pinkett was an absolute... he just blazed a trail and came up with this fabulous idea that children need to be able to play music. You've got to take music to children, enable them to do it. It gives them a lifetime skill. Even if they never pick up that instrument again, they have an ability to appreciate music, to maybe read music, to love music for the rest of their lives. So, not only will we have people like the chairman of Leicestershire County Council turning up, but we'll also have Eric Pinkett's granddaughter, who we're hoping to speak to. We'll have a music historian. We'll have the head teacher of Langton School, who I have to say I'm very thrilled by. He's just brought me a lovely cup of tea. And we'll be making a bit of a fuss of it, unveiling a blue plaque that will always be here that marks the importance of what Eric Pinkett did, because we can't overestimate and overemphasise the fact that this man changed people's lives in the most beautiful way. You know, 1948, long time ago, but he had an ability to see what was really important, and we'll be celebrating that all the way through the morning.
Brilliant, Ben. Thank you. We'll catch up with you again a little bit later on. Ben's live from Langton School, going into all the details in greater depth after 9 o'clock.
Well, he did inspire lots and lots of people, as we just mentioned. And earlier on, we spoke to John and Jenny, who back in their youth were taught by Eric, were involved in orchestras and musical groups led by him. And this is what they had to say to us earlier.
He was incredibly enthusiastic. Also, the developing of a competitive quality in us. When I look back on it, I think some of those skills and disciplines that he instilled in me when I was a
snotty, spotty schoolchild, yes.
Have stayed with me, not the spots, but the motivation, really the discipline of work and that you can achieve something.
Eric just changed our lives forever, really. He knew how to make things happen. I mean, so many top musicians he got to come to the county to conduct the LSSO, and the one who said no was Sir Michael Tippett. That didn't bother Eric Pinkett because he knew how to get round it. He put the orchestra on a bus and took them down to him.
What a man. Well, plenty more with Ben from 9 o'clock this morning here on BBC Radio Leicester.
Over the last few weeks, we've been asking you which of our local music legends should get an official blue plaque. There are many of them, but you chose a guy called Eric Pinkett. Well, we've headed out to the studio for BBC Music Day to celebrate the work that he did, because he founded the Leicestershire School of Music. It was the first school music service in the UK and led the way for the rest of the country, and in many ways still does. Steve Roddy is the head teacher of Langton Primary School and joins us now. Steve, you make a very good cup of tea, if I can say, to start off with.
You're very welcome.
Now, look, we're standing in the sunshine. Your school, let's talk about the music in a second or two. We've got to mention what a beautiful school this is.
We're very lucky. We're in a lovely spot in South Leicestershire, a school of just over 200 children, and very, very pleased with everything we're able to offer the children in the local area.
And it's you're quite a big school for I mean, Church Langton's not a tiny village, but it's not a huge village. You've got about 200 odd. I think it was built for 80. That's testimony to what you and your team must do here.
The school's grown in size over the years. I think during the 1990s in particular, we increased in size, so we're now a one-form entry school. We cap at 30 in each class, which is something we're really keen to protect. But we're really proud of what we're able to offer, and it's a lovely location for education.
We were just having a little wander around, and we went into the playground. The playground possibly has the best view of any playground in the county, I think. Somebody will argue, but it's breathtaking across those beautiful South Leicestershire wolds.
It's a wonderful spot, and we often have children and parents commenting on the view, and even on a not quite as nice a day as today, it's a lovely spot to be enjoying the sun.
So a lovely place for children to be educated and so on. And music is a really important part of that, isn't it?
Absolutely. We're really proud of the broad and balanced curriculum we offer at school, and music a big part of that. We have a specialist music teacher, Alan Kirkland, who's a specialist leader in education for music, and he delivers the music to every class in the school. The children really enjoy all the opportunities he develops for them, and obviously we work with Leicester-Shire School Music Service to develop that further.
And the thing is that Eric Pinkett sort of, and those you forget, don't you, that it was the years just after the war when there wasn't a lot of money about. It was all about nuts and bolts, getting the country back up and running again. You know, the fact that, I mean, even school buildings, nobody had spent any money on them during the war because there wasn't anything to spend. So to come up with this idea of enabling school children to have access to music was revolutionary at the time. Huge change.
And I think something that we see the full benefits of now. We have an event next week at De Montfort Hall where a number of schools will be going together to perform, and it's a wonderful event each year that you can see the outcomes from Eric's hard work back in those days.
And from a present day head teacher perspective, couldn't you make the argument, well, what's the point of music? There's so much financial pressure on schools, hunker down on the basics, maths and English. Why bother with the music?
It's very easy to fall into that trap of being focused just on the areas in which we're assessed by our SATs and external bodies. But actually we believe that children deserve a full and balanced curriculum. PE is a huge part of that, the teaching of language, design, art, and music clearly is a significant part as well. And actually I think it has a big impact on outcomes in other areas of the curriculum by providing those different opportunities.
Now, having read a little bit about Eric Pinkett before today, it strikes me he was a man that didn't take no easily for an answer, or at least came up with a creative way of getting around stuff. If a conductor wouldn't come to him, he'd take the entire orchestra to them. I'd love that kind of thing. What have you been teaching the children about him?
So we've got a special assembly this afternoon where we're going to be discussing how he had great ambition, and he had a very positive mindset. He wanted to achieve things, and as you say, went about in different ways of achieving those outcomes. And actually it's something the children can learn from. That sometimes we do have barriers to what we want to achieve, that sometimes it might be in a maths lesson we find something tricky, or it might be something we're taking on outside of school, but having the right mindset allows us to achieve those goals.
And isn't it rather wonderful, a man that dedicated so much of his life to educating children, enabling to be the best they can be, is still relevant, still effectively teaching children today?
Absolutely, huge legacy, and I think we're really proud to discover that Church Langton was the location of his first ever concert, and really proud that we can continue to have events like that today.
Steve, we'll catch up during the morning because there is an unveiling. We have a plaque, we have bunting, we even have flags to give to the children for a bit later on because we're making a proper fuss about this.
Fantastic, we're looking forward to it. Should be a good day.
Thanks ever so much, head teacher of Church Langton Primary School. A lady has unwisely perhaps turned up, expecting not to speak on a microphone. Catherine, you were a family friend of the Pinketts, weren't you?
I was a friend of Cherry's, yes, who was the daughter. Who's the same age as me.
And from everything I've read about Eric, he seemed to be a pretty remarkable man.
Absolutely. He never said no.
Really?
Yeah, he was so enthusiastic and made his family enthusiastic as well.
Now, from what you were saying, he was sort of promoted to Director of Music from Melton Mowbray, is that right?
Melton Mowbray Grammar School. He was in the RAF, and then when he came out of the RAF, he went to Melton Grammar School as music teacher. Right. And then Stuart Mason, who was the Director of Education, promoted him to Director of Music for the county.
And that's where he really took off.
That's when he started the children's orchestra. And we were bussed in from all over the county to Elbow.
Were you part of that orchestra?
Oh, yes,
no.
yes.
What was it like?
Oh, we thought it was wonderful. It took all of Saturday. Went to Elbow Lane School, which is sort of Southgate's area of Leicester. And people just came and they were given instruments. And my parents were actually flautists, so I was able to have an instrument from them.
Were you aware at the time that this was unusual?
No. It was a normal childhood as far as we were concerned.
And yet you were so lucky because you were the first generation to get access to it.
Absolutely. And all right, I may have gone on to study music anyway because of my parents, but not. I had years and years of fun playing the flute and singing.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? That music. I mean, I'm sure that you were very accomplished, but actually, I mean, my children have had a lot out of music, even though, frankly, none of the notes are ever in the right position, but they do enjoy it. Felix enjoyed the guitar for a bit, just plucking away.
That's what it's about, enjoyment. You don't have to go on and do exams, it's enjoyment. And if it gives you enjoyment throughout life, what else can you wish for?
Well, I mean, what a gift that he gave to so many people.
Yeah.
Do you still get pleasure from music today?
Oh, absolutely. I don't play any longer, I don't really sing any longer, but...
What a wonderful thing.
And my husband was Michael White, who was also almost a founder member. He played the fiddle, and that's how we got together. Ever so romantic.
So Eric Pinkett's not only responsible for music across the county, but also for romance.
Oh, absolutely.
This man needs more than one blue plaque.
He does. Would you like me to donate one?
Yes, well, go on then, crack on. And actually, one thing I've learned from you, I'm so thrilled to have met you that I didn't know this until you mentioned it, that he lived opposite my grandparents in Barrow-on-Soar. So they must have known each other.
Yeah, they lived in a schoolhouse at Melton when he was there, and then I think when he got the director of music, that's where they went to.
Really? Just near the Fossil in Barrow-on-Soar?
Well, yes, just near the Fossil.
Wow, thank you so much. It's lovely to meet you. Thank you, and thank you for coming down for the unveiling.
Will you let the people know that it's here at whatever time, and not in the marketplace? Because I would have gone to the marketplace had I not heard the tail end of...
Always pays to listen to Radio Leicester, you see, doesn't it, Catherine? Thank you very much indeed. Yes, the unveiling going on at 10:30 this morning. Well, 47 people and places are being honoured across England by BBC Local Radio, all for BBC Music Day, which is why we are at this primary school. Eric Pinkett is the name of the man being awarded the Blue Plaque in his honour. Now, Eric founded the Leicester-Shire School of Music. It was the first school music service in the UK and led the way for the rest of the country. In many ways, still does. Well, Matt Smith has been to find out some more about him.
The first in the country that we know of, quite a pioneer really.
He wanted other children to be able to have that opportunity and see the wonders of music.
At the time, it was just inspirational.
I know it's altered their life, and there are many that I can tell you of who, because of music, have become different people.
That's the voice of musician, conductor and educator Eric Pinkett. As you can tell from those ringing endorsements, he's a man who achieved something very special for music education here in Leicestershire.
His vision was that all young people in Leicester and Leicestershire should have access to free music, to learn an instrument, to take part in a performance group and to take part in performances.
Eric founded the Leicester-Shire School of Music. It was the first school music service in the UK and led the way for the rest of the country.
Begged, borrowed, got people to help him to teach the students, got hold of venues and set up this network of groups and people throughout the county, which still remains today in a slightly different form.
Andy Wales works for the Leicestershire Schools Music Service, the current form of Eric's life work. He was one of the many to nominate Eric. Part of the service was the Leicestershire Schools Symphony Orchestra, which gained an international reputation.
It wasn't just about music. I think he was also an expert at PR, sales and marketing. He was getting conductors to come to Birstall, people such as Sir Michael Tippett, Norman Delmar, Andre Previn and Arthur Bliss. He must have had one heck of a charisma to get top professionals to get involved with what was basically a school's orchestra.
Former pupil John Whitmore is one of the thousands who directly benefited from Eric's work.
I think it's fair to say that Eric actually set up the organisation not as a breeding ground for future professionals, but as a system for getting ordinary kids to actually enjoy their music.
This is Eric conducting the LSSO for the final time, just 3 years before his death in 1979. He received the OBE in 72, but he never expected any plaudits for his work.
I don't think he did it to be in the limelight or to be something special. He just did it for the children of Leicester, because that's where he was.
He's survived by his family, including granddaughter Jackie Moore.
It's nice to know, after all these years, that his legacy continues and people still remember him. It's not very often that people remember educational people, so I think that makes it very special too.
Eric Pinkett, your choice to be commemorated with a blue plaque to celebrate BBC Music Day 2017 in Leicester-Shire and Rutland.
When I first started, the important thing was to have enthusiasts. And so I had a lot of people working with me who had terrific enthusiasm and no ability. But give me the enthusiast with ability and we can do marvels.
Well, that was Matt Smith finding out just a little bit more about Eric Pinkett. One of the voices you heard there was Andy Wales from the Leicestershire Schools Music Service, which is the continuation of the work that he did, isn't it?
That's right, yeah. The music service, as is the latest incarnation. We're still teaching pupils throughout Leicester and Leicestershire.
And it seemed to me that, and indeed we heard him say that it was about enthusiasm. If you had the talent, well, that's great, but if you had the enthusiasm, that's all you really needed.
That's right, yeah. The students and the teachers that he got together really formed an inspirational team which brought out the best in all the students, and they went on to achieve great things. And the service rapidly snowballed into many groups performing many performances, and lots of students being taught.
And is that the same ethos for today?
Yeah, very much so, yeah. I mean, obviously things have changed and funding's changed, this, that and the other. We're not always able to offer free membership and free lessons to everybody, but we do wherever we can nowadays. But that's the big difference between then and now. The enthusiasm's still very much the same.
And why is music important?
Music's important in so many ways. It helps you develop, it helps students concentrate. There's benefits after benefits after benefits. All you need to do is look online and you'll find rafts and rafts of information about why music is almost vital, really, to children's development.
I mean, it's interesting when you read about it online. Actually, you know, it's about marshalling thought, isn't it? And if you have a musical lesson in the middle of the day, your lessons subsequent to that are, you're a bit brighter, a bit more, engaged, all that kind of thing.
Very much. It helps concentration, it helps children relax. There's benefits for children who have difficulties in helping them concentrate, all manner of different things.
John Day, you are chairman of governors at the school here.
Yeah.
Do you get the impression that when we were parked up here, when they were being dropped off at school, there was a lot of children. Oh, what's this? What are you doing? Is there a bit of excitement in the school today?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, music is important in this school as well. Many of the children are involved in playing musical instruments, and we shall see and hear them shortly. And so music and sport and all sorts of things are really important to this school.
And I'm not sure even that the head teacher, I'm not sure you did either, knew that this school played a part in the Eric Pinkett story, did you?
Oh, absolutely not. About 5 or 6 weeks ago, Steve Roddy, the head teacher, rang me up as chair of the governors and said, John, I've just had this phone call, and explained what it was about, putting up a blue plaque, and said to me as chair of governors, do you think we should do it? And I said, absolutely, we should do it. I remember him. I went to school in Leicestershire. Really? I was hopeless at music, but I do remember his name. And my wife was actually in a choir that was conducted by Eric Pinkett, I think at De Montfort Hall. So remember the name very well. This was in the 1960s.
It's one of those people that he got everywhere. Even if you weren't anything to do with music, you kind of knew about him.
Oh yeah, you did, because it was so important to Leicestershire and beyond that, really. I mean, it was such an important part of the Leicestershire education scene. Yeah.
Well, it's pulling in the great and the good. The chain gang are appearing. The chair of Leicestershire County Council's just arrived, which is actually fitting, to be perfectly honest. It's fitting that that people of Leicestershire have chosen Eric Pinkett as their person to champion with this Blue Plaque scheme, and it seems right that everybody's turned out this morning.
Absolutely, yes. It's nice to see lots of people, particularly people who were part of Eric Pinkett's work in Leicestershire over many years, right from the start. I believe we've got somebody who was in the first orchestra, and shortly after we've unveiled the plaque, we're going to listen to our children playing musical instruments, which is reflection. Hopefully people will say his memory continues onwards. Yes.
John, thanks. Lovely to see you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. More and more people are gathering here in Church Langton, actually. We're about to unveil the plaque. We're just, Eric Pinkett's granddaughters have just arrived, but one's travelled from Yorkshire and one's travelled from Suffolk, and I think they've had sat-nav problems. Anyway, we'll be hearing hopefully from them in a bit. We're just letting them settle down a bit before we sort of do the speeches and so on and so forth. But it's testament to how people are still very fond of him and the work that he did for music in our county, that so many people have turned up today to Church Langton Primary School. We'll hear more from the head teacher in a second or two. There'll be a few speeches. We'll dip in and out of that for you, and we'll capture some of the people that have gathered here today, some of whom were in that first sort of generation of people that took advantage of music being offered at the time for free. All you had to have, in Eric Pinkett's view, was some enthusiasm. If you had enthusiasm, he'll do the rest. He'd teach you to play a musical instrument and to have some fun. And for many people, of course, that started a lifelong enjoyment for music. But it wasn't just about the music. We were hearing from the sort of modern equivalent of Eric Pinkett and his team earlier on with the school music service now, who said, of course, the thing with music is that it can help with concentration. It helps with other lessons. You know, a music lesson in the middle of the day can really get people sorted out and settled down, and it's by all accounts it shows increases in their ability to learn other things, particularly maths and things like that. I'll just let you can probably hear a bit of a buzz in the background. Some of the children have come out. They're going to be singing for us a little bit later on. They've all got BBC Music Day flags, which they are waving enthusiastically. Can you remember when you were in primary school and something happened? It was, I don't know, the fire brigade turned up with a fire engine, or the police turned up with a patrol car, or in our case, the BBC turned up with a great big satellite car and stuff. The excitement about not having to be in your lesson and coming outside into the sunshine and maybe singing a song and having some fun. The chairman of the county council is in amongst the children. The sunlight gleaming off her official chain of office around her shoulders, and there's a sort of here we go. I'll just let you this is Pete Wardman, one of our producers at BBC Radio Leicester.
Programmes editor, and about 2 months ago we asked our listeners to propose people in Leicestershire who they thought had made a very significant contribution to music. The person that was chosen, after a long period of discussion and debate between myself and my colleagues locally here, and also the National Committee in London, decided on Eric Pinkett. Now, Eric Pinkett, I know you've been taught about in your school the last few days, made a huge contribution to music in Leicestershire, and his legacy is with us today. We'll hear more about that in a few minutes' time. But first of all, I'd like to hand you to Steve Roddy, who's the head teacher here at Church Langton School.
Thank you very much. We're delighted to have been chosen as the location of the Blue Plaque to remember Eric Pinkett. Music is a big part of our school, and we're really excited that we've got our Year 5 children here who are ready to perform for you all slightly later on. We work with Leicester-Shire Music Service on a number of different projects, and just next week, in fact, we have both Year 4 and Year 5 going to De Montfort Hall to perform in front of a large audience. They're very excited. This year's big project has been working on taiko drums, and so the children have been working with Leicester-Shire Music Service and also with Bullfrog Arts in preparing across the whole year and learning a number of different routines, one of which you're going to hear later on. We really value everything that we get from the music service, and it's great to hear of the legacy that Eric has left behind. We're honoured to hear that actually the first concert was held in our school hall, and it's a brilliant occasion to be able to mark that today. So welcome to all of you, and we look forward to marking this special day together.
I'd like to introduce to you Jenny Brooks. Jenny is with us today. Now, Jenny was, I think I'm right in saying, one of the founder member of the Leicestershire Schools Symphony Orchestra. And I'll hand you over to Jenny now.
Thank you. Not quite founder member, but very early on. I did actually visit Elbow Lane, and then quite soon after that we went down to Birstall. Eric Pinkett just changed our lives altogether. We just became different people. and I was given a flute and told, you blow down there, and here's the book, and come next week. This wasn't Mr. Pinkett, this was one of his team, and I started having flute lessons. It just was amazing. We went every Saturday morning without fail to Longslade, and Mr. Pinkett was somebody who you couldn't say no to. He didn't understand the word no at all. In fact, he asked questions so that the answer was always yes. It was unbelievable. The only person who said no to him was Sir Michael Tippett, and he said no when he asked him to come and conduct the orchestra. So Eric Pinkett put the orchestra, a whole orchestra, on a bus and took them down to Sir Michael Tippett, and that became that. Can you imagine doing that these days? My goodness, every school in Leicestershire would be without half its pupils. It was absolutely wonderful.
Well, things unveil. We've been waiting for this unveiling since about 8 o'clock this morning, and there it is. It's like a little red hat, like a swimming hat that was put over the blue plaque. And there it is, Eric Pinkett, OBE, Mr. Music, 1911 to 1979, founder of Leicestershire County School of Music and the Leicestershire School Symphony Orchestra.
And now we'll go through into the hall, we'll follow the children inside, and then we'll hear them perform.
We're going to go and wander back inside the school in a second or two. This is all to mark somebody who did something pretty remarkable. In the years after the Second World War, he decided and put it upon himself that, you know what, one of the things that children really needed was access to music. And without any of those barriers, people didn't have to audition. All you had to have was some enthusiasm. If you turned up, like we heard earlier on from one of the founder members of the symphony orchestra, you were given a flute, you were given a piece of an instrument, you were given some music, you were told to come back next week, go and have a play with it. And it's a pretty remarkable thing, isn't it? And to this day, music is still absolutely fundamental to children's education in Leicestershire. And he led the way, not just in this country, but actually worldwide. And to a greater or lesser extent, exactly the same thing happens to this day. People look to Leicestershire for the work that we do with children, with music. Now, I've been speaking to a lot of people who teach music today, and it's very easy to have that argument, you know what, straitened circumstances, why even bother with music? And the point keeps coming back because it's fundamentally important to children's education. It doesn't just help them learn an instrument maybe, or learn to read music, or to learn music appreciation, but it also helps them in all of their learning. And more reports seem to come out suggesting that. We're going to go into the school now. Let's hear a bit more music whilst we go and do that. We're live from Church Langton and Church Langton Primary School. Well, we're coming towards the end of the programme. I just thought we'd have a quick chat to John Whitmore and Malcolm Murray just before we finish. You were both effectively students of Eric, weren't you? What was it like to be in that orchestra in the 60s?
Well, looking back, it was just remarkable. And we thought it was normal because we made recordings, we were on the TV, we did foreign tours and played in places such as Vienna and Berlin. But as a young kid in Leicestershire, we thought this was just normal.
And when did you get an inkling that actually what you were doing was not available to anybody else in the country?
Well, I think the time came, exactly what John said. We did the most unusual things. I mean, what students actually get the opportunity to play in studios, play with great composers and conductors, and that really was the thing that built us all. And many of us went on to play professionally in London and elsewhere, and all those people that came from the Leicester Orchestra are now in orchestras still in Britain. Throughout Britain, there isn't an orchestra without Leicestershire schools. I'm
moving here to do this blue plaque, of course, which is a lovely, it's a small thing, but it's a lovely thing to mark what extraordinary work that he did. It's been a lovely gathering, actually, hasn't it?
It's been brilliant and thoroughly deserved because he was, Malcolm used the word genius earlier. I don't know whether that's true, but he was certainly an amazing man. And Malcolm's talked about music by way of being a professional player. And although it was a breeding ground for many professional players, the majority were like me, just ordinary kids who loved what they were doing. We're all fairly decent players, and none of us have forgotten this. And I think the great testimony to Eric's work is that we have reunions every 4, 5 or 6 years, and we get 400 or 500 people coming to them, and we've never forgotten that, which is remarkable, isn't it?
Do you still play?
No, thank goodness, which is good for the audience and for me.
Slightly harsh. Malcolm?
Harsh but fair.
Yes. Well, again, what John said, it's great. It was a great time. It was a great time for students. I loved every moment of it. And in fact, when I went to music college, it was a step backwards. I had to learn how to play with people who couldn't play in an orchestra again. God. And everybody says that. We had, it was he gave us all, the legacy was amazing. And we were able to go on and just become professionals, and that was what he did. And he also thought very kindly of people. He knew every single player in the orchestra, and if you had a problem, he would talk to you. He loved all the children, and he was just a great man, really.
John, final thought?
Well, final thought. Putting music to one side. What this man managed to do is every Saturday we got young people from Loughborough, Hinckley, Mark, everywhere, who went to Birstall. And most of us at the time said that we limped our way through the school curriculum just waiting for Saturdays because we loved music and we could meet friends from all over the county. And it was a great benefit for me personally because we'd get on the bus from Hinckley to Birstall. The morning was music, and then I used to get off the bus and go to watch my beloved Foxes at Filbert Street. So it was a win-win. It was a great time.
I'm thrilled to have met you both. Thank you so much for coming and spending a bit of time with us today, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you indeed. We've been marking the life and work of Eric Pinkett here on BBC Radio Leicester. It's coming up towards 12. Let's finish with a bit of music.